Okay, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the European Specialty Tea webinar series to inform, connect, and inspire our members based all over the globe. We are a volunteer-based organization and we want to experience and inspire our individuals. I'm so sorry. Where we're going to inspire individuals that are I'm so sorry, I have a frog today in my throat. Anyhow, we want to inspire you with our webinar series, and one of our key pillars is collaboration. And we love to help everyone within the tea value chain to network, to collaborate with each other. And as you know, together is certainly better. And today we will be discussing the future of specialty tea. Now, my name is Bernadine Tay. I am the founder of the UK-based tea company called Quintessential, but I'm also one of the founders of the European Specialty Tea Association, formerly known as the European Tea Society. And today we have some very exciting news and discussions around the reason for our name change, but more accurately reflects our values and mission to raise standards towards tea appreciation of specialty tea everywhere. Today with me, you see here are my fellow colleagues, Nigel Milligan, the founder of Tea Craft, which is an Irish-based tea company, and he's a consultant as well, specializing in helping the world develop and grow tea. Nigel is also our current president. We have Alexis Kay, tea educator and founder of Simply Tea based in Denmark. Alexis is our vice president. And of course, we have David Veal, former director of the Speciality Coffee Association of Europe, and now director of ESTA. Now, it will be a lively discussion about the future of specialty tea, and we'll be covering some very interesting areas around the movement, the modern tea experience, the importance of the new tea barista, explain a little bit more later, and how we see and will support the growth of this key sector in the out-of-home experience. Now, I'll do my best to address some of your questions if you have any during the webinar. So please feel free to send your questions into the Q&A box that you have on the button. And it's going to be a lively discussion where we will try to answer your questions then. We are recording now, so feel free to sit back, relax, and sip your cup of tea. So now I just want to start by saying that specialty tea is a really, really broad term. And internally, we have spent so many hours debating, talking about it, and coming to a point where we think it clearly defines specialty tea. And in this, I will hand over to Nigel to explain what we think specialty tea is. Over to you, Nigel.
Thank you, Bernadine. Many people have tried to define specialty tea, and quite a few of them think it's an impossibility to do it. But this is how we would define specialty tea. We would say it's not just a range of tea products, but it's also a movement, an idea, an inspiration, a community, and overall a quest for excellence at all levels in the tea value chain. And we are very conscious that tea is changing from a commodity to a gourmet product. Over the past 20, 30 years, perception of tea has changed a lot. And mainly that is a reaction to the commoditization of tea in the supermarkets and the dumbing down of tea into bland tea bags. 96% of all the tea sold in the UK is in a tea bag format, 96%. Commoditization and loss leader marketing in the supermarkets has fostered overproduction of tea and a low price expectation amongst the consumer. And low pricing means that producers must make and sell their tea in very high volumes. I mean, in simple terms, that means that a producer getting a return on 10 kilos of 1% profit, that's the same as selling 1 kilo at 10% profit. But to sell that 10 kilos means there has to be low pricing on the shelves to shift it. And for the producer, it means that he has to cut corners, pay poorly to his workers, introduce mechanization, rely on monoculture. All of that reduces the quality of the commodity tea. Now, specialty tea is the antithesis of commodity tea. It's made with skill and pride and in smaller amounts. And we would say that specialty tea is, as a product, can include all 6 categories of tea made from Camellia sinensis. And we include botanicals of high quality, botanicals and fruit and herbal infusions and tisanes. All leaf beverages grown, processed, blended and served to a high degree of dedication, passion and care will fall within the remit. So all of that will ensure that the consumer enjoys an enhanced beverage experience. But it's not only artisanal teas, handmade teas that can be special. Commodity CTC teas comprise 2/3 of all the black tea grown in the world. 6 billion kilos of tea is grown in the world. 2/3 of that is CTC black tea. And in my early career, I handled a lot of so-so teas, and they were all CTC teas. But 12 years ago in the tea factory in Rwanda, I found a surprising example of what I would now call a specialty tea. A superb CTC tea, albeit destined for tea bag blending, but it was absolutely perfect of its type. It was evenly sized, it was perfectly formed, it had a wonderful velvety black bloom. It was so good that running it through my fingers, it sent shivers down my back. And that is exactly how a specialty tea should affect you. Now, we should be thinking, what is the future of specialty tea? Is it a flash in the pan? Is it something, a phenomenon which will go away? Well, it's been around for 30 years, slightly over 30 years. I think its birth was in the USA when James Norwood Pratt's seminal book, A Tea Lover's Treasury, was published in 1982. And that opened people's eyes and sparked interest in he was calling real tea. And in that time, since 1982, it's grown to a $3 billion industry in the USA. $3 billion a year industry. And now 20% of all US tea sales in value, 20% in value, are specialty tea. They call it specialty tea. Now that trend is putting a wedge between ever cheaper and poorer quality industrial commodity tea and the admittedly expensive premium teas. It's a growing wedge, a polarization, which will reshape the future of the tea industry. One of the things about specialty tea is that people are becoming interested in the supply chain, and they're interested in transparency. They want to know where the tea comes from. And that, at last, is giving the producer a possibility of a fairer share. A shorter supply chain, a shorter value chain, gives more of the money that you pay for your tea on the shelf. More trickles down to the actual producer, who really have been unfairly treated. Now, increasingly, people are seeking to know more about specialty tea and seeking accurate, reliable, authentic information. They go to the internet. A lot of that information is, frankly, dubious. But because people are so interested, this is one of the prime reasons why the European Specialty Tea Association was formed, and why it believes that tea education is a vitally important driver for the future of specialty tea. Okay, over to you, Bernadine, for the next part of the presentation.
No, thank you very much, Nigel, for that. I understand what you mean when you said, you know, you tasted the tea and it sent shivers down your spine, because I totally agree. Teas, you know, specialty tea can really have that effect on you. And I think, you know, in regards to the out at home experience, I can speak for myself, and I think a lot of other consumers share this with me, is that as much as I love tea, when I'm out of the home, I order coffee. I'm sorry to say that, because sometimes, most of the time actually, when you're outside, the quality is poor, the variety is not available in cafes. And, you know, because it hasn't been prepared properly as well, the satisfaction that you get, the shivers down your spine that you mentioned, it's not there, and it's really, really compromised. And we also, you're very right, need to reverse how consumers perceive tea in terms of its value, because a lot of the times when you go to a cafe, it's a tea bag dumped into water, or, you know, boiling water put on top of it. And of course, in the consumer's mind, it's not prepared with skill. So it's really, really important that we change that. And already, you know, in many industry leaders, I think a research show that 45% of industry leaders say that if, you know, we make this shift and introduce more specialty teas into the market in the mainstream cafes, this will increase out-of-home sales for tea very, very significantly. But you're right, education needs to be bolt on with that. I just wanted to say that, you know, coffee is a very popular drink, and according to Allegra, as much as we do for specialty tea, coffee will always surpass tea. Now, David, would you agree with that? And, you know, what do you have to share? Because you've been a part of the Specialty Coffee Association. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Yes, you know, it's true to say that you know, coffee and tea have many similarities, but many differences. And the specialty coffee industry over the past 2 or 3 decades has really done a good job at promoting specialty coffee throughout the world, and you know, the size of the market has grown because of that. And they did that through a number of means, primarily by creating a community which was passionate about you know, the whole subject of specialty coffee, and who aspired to raise the standards and raise quality, which is obviously crucial when you're talking about when specialty is your core subject. And along the way, they weren't frightened to have some fun and excitement in building that community. And that was then building on that, some of the tools that were used to, and still are being used to, promote specialty coffee were research and education, which are, you know, absolutely crucial. And so that's the route that the specialty coffee community has gone, and it's a route that I think the specialty tea industry is poised to follow. And you know, it's fair to say, we must remember that whilst we would draw on the lessons and the examples and the history that specialty coffee has, we shouldn't be looking to copy it all the time in tea. We should be able to plough our own route. But I personally think, and I know other people do, that the time is right. There are now lots of sort of murmurings, lots of people talking about how the time is right to really start upping the level in terms of promoting specialty tea, using some of the methods that and the tools that the coffee people have done, but really enhancing you know, what we have in the tea industry. And the tea industry has advantages that the coffee industry doesn't have. One of them would be you know, the ease of brewing compared with some methods of coffee brewing. One of them is certainly the vast range of different teas that there are compared with coffee. And so I think we're just on the cusp of something really good. And, you know, just like Nigel was saying about drinking a tea and, you know, getting the shivers down his back, you know, I think of, as well as also learning and experiencing new teas and getting shivers down my back, I also get shivers down my back when I think about the potential that there is for specialty tea to really take off and become an exciting product and an exciting community. And I think we're on the beginning of a really, really great journey.
I thank you very much. You know, actually, David, I'd like to pose a question to you from Petra. Now, she says, in specialty coffee industry, there's very specific rules which coffees can be called specialty coffee with the help of the cup of excellence. Now it feels like with specialty tea, the term can be used by anyone. Do you have any plans on trying to establish a specific set of rules and definitions on when a tea could be called specialty tea? For example, hand-picking orthodox tea, only top quality leaves picked. What do you guys think? Maybe Nigel and David can answer this.
Nigel, do you want to go first, or shall I?
I would just say I'm certainly no coffee expert, but I would say that one of the big differences in defining it is that coffee has half a dozen different types, half different countries, and 2 or 3 different species, but there are at least 10,000 different teas, and the processing options are so much wider for tea than for coffee. So the permutations are so much greater than the permutations in coffee that it's very difficult to pin it down to specifics, like whether it was picked from the very top leaves, or because oolongs, for instance, are not picked from the very top leaves. They tried with the International Standards Organization, tried to define tea. One of these definitions was on its solids content. This is important in coffee, but in tea, a very good Assam will have a solids content of nearly 40%. So they said, all right, well, we'll say anything below 38% is not a good tea. But Darjeeling teas, which have just an equal claim to being specialty, their solids rarely go above about 22 or 24%. So you would cut out Darjeelings if you had that definition for Assams. Likewise, an Assam with only 24% solids would be appalling. So it is very difficult to make technical specifications on what speciality is in tea.
I think, I mean, first of all, it's a really, really good and important question, Petra. And there are 2 parts to the answer from me. You are right that specialty coffee has, through the Cup of Excellence and also through Coffee Quality Institute and the Specialty Coffee Association, got a very robust, strong and well-tried system for grading coffee for specialty 80. Although some people even now disagree on where it should start, but 80, generally most people would agree speciality, and then 85. Now 86 is the benchmark for Cup of Excellence. But really that's only part of the story. And it goes back to Nigel's point earlier on about the definition of speciality. Because you can take a really good quality coffee or tea at origin, and by the time that you get to the tea in the cup, it's gone through stages, more in coffee than in tea, but it's gone through stages, and it can be ruined by the person who's brewing the tea or serving the tea. Does that make what was a specialty tea at the beginning on the farm or in the garden a specialty tea when it's actually on the table being consumed? So that's, there are those two parts to it. Somebody who knows a lot more about tea than I do might correct me on this, but I do believe that that method of grading, and not so much grading, but scoring, would be absolutely fantastic, a fantastic tool for specialty tea and to helping us to promote and improve the quality of specialty tea if we could bring it in. And I take your point, Nigel, that and I made the same point earlier on, that there are many, many more different choices of tea than there are coffee. However, if you set it on a foundation of saying, what should this tea taste like? And that comes from the experts who know about tea and the producer who's telling you what his tea should taste like. If you do your scoring system against that first parameter, then I think it's probably possible to bring in a scoring system. And that would be fantastic if we could do it. But once again, that wouldn't be the end of the story, because it then has to go through, to the consumer and be just as good at the point of enjoyment as it was right at the beginning of the journey.
Thank you very much. So, we're talking about education, and I'm so sorry, my internet was really unstable just now, and I didn't hear whether you addressed Marjolaine's comment, whether, because she says, do you think that the vast range of teas is perhaps a hindrance to start off in tea, as it's quite confusing to someone's tea journey? Did you address that?
I didn't address that. I can. I'll answer as a fellow novice in tea, and the answer is yes. It can be confusing, but once again, that's probably one of the tasks and the responsibilities that we as an association should have in making it easier for people to understand primarily by education, of course.
I would always advise people to start off with just one single colour. Start off with a green tea and explore the range of green teas perhaps, before worrying about words and oolongs and black teas and orthodox teas and CTC teas. And Alexis, wouldn't you say?
Yes, definitely start with one category. I mean, when I started in the tea industry years ago, it was so difficult to find out what was a white tea, what was a green tea. And it ended up by me having to travel to China to learn about it, because there's very little information out there. In Europe, not many people knew about tea. And what you found on the internet was probably, as you said before, suspect. So many of our members have expressed how challenging it is to find education to suit their needs. So what we're doing through the European Specialty Tea Associations provide a curriculum for education. We're not going to provide the education ourselves. We're going to provide it so trainers can use this curriculum to educate people in their community. And some education out there is very in-depth. A lot of it is just, having a cup of tea in the afternoon and talking about a cup of tea. But there's so much diversity within tea, and so much more than there is within coffee, I'm afraid to say. I mean, each category has its own way of being prepared, and it has to have its own brewing techniques. So there's a lot of education we're trying to get together. And for this, we're trying to base this on the SCA setup with the modules. Example of these modules are Camellia sinensis, botanicals, sensory, hospitality, including what we're going to discuss later on called tea barista. Agronomy, a lot of people are interested in producing tea, actually growing tea in their garden, either as an interest or actually producing tea to be able to make tea on a commercial basis. And of course, marketing. So we're going to come in through different ideas of modules for this curriculum, and each curriculum will be divided into a series of advanced and foundation and advanced. So this is what we're working on, and we've been working on for the last 6-7 months, and due to the corona, we suddenly decided that maybe we should have a little bit more of an insight in having some information on, on the web. So we've been working with other tea organisations, and we've worked with the Australian Tea Masters in sharing their 101 course, which we've adjusted to suit our needs in Europe. And that is now available on our website. And for those who are actually members of the European Specialty Tea Association, it is free of charge. So if you'd like to do that course, then send us a mail and we will send you a code and you can go in and do the course. We will have our intro to tea, which will give you an insight in what tea is and what courses we have to offer. That will be ready at the end of this month. And hopefully, if all going well and that nobody has been restricted due to the coronavirus, we'll get that rolling within towards the autumn. So yeah, we're producing curriculum. We're not producing courses, but for trainers to train their in their own way or whatever. But we're producing the curriculum, the slides, all the education that is needed, and we'll also provide the exams and the certificates after that as well. So anybody who wants to be a certified tea educator is welcome to contact us, and we will help them along the way with that journey. So we're trying to set standards. So the education you'll be getting in Britain will be the same as the education you get in Holland or in the US or wherever you are. So it's about setting standards and providing a good basis for a well-developed education. So, yes.
Thank you, Alexis. You know, Lorilla has asked a question. Are we planning to partner with other European countries which already have some courses? I would say that we're very open, isn't it? Because we're an inclusive, collaborative society. Absolutely, yes. Yes. And we're working with tea experts all over the world. So as many as people who would like to join or so cooperate with us, that'd be really, really good. Yeah. Yeah, collaboration is definitely a key part of our growth, and it's you know, really good for us to share ideas, share knowledge, because that's the only way that we can progress, innovate, and future-proof the tea industry. Yeah.
I think that's a really important point, actually, Bernadine, because we're sort of setting ourselves out to be, you know, an authority, if not the authority, in you know, in specialty tea standards, you know, throughout Europe certainly, and that might come across as being a little bit arrogant, but we can only do that. It's not arrogant at all, because we feel that at the moment there is no authority and there's no unified conformity throughout Europe or the world, and so we feel that we can fill that position, but we can only do it by collaborating with different individuals and different organisations, and particularly, you know, some of the other tea associations and specialty tea associations around the world. So we've already started with, as Alexis just mentioned, Australian Tea Masters, but we are talking to other people in other organisations.
You know, sorry, Dan has just put in a question, which I think is quite interesting. He says that if authentic storytelling is anchored at origin, who is the best position to tell that story? Is it producers, wholesalers, retailers? Is online the best channel for communicating authentic and reliable information about specialty tea? Or is the online channel, the open web, afflicted by too much noise? That's a hard question, isn't it?
That's a good question, yeah.
There's about 10 questions in one there.
Yeah.
Good old Dan. Who's going to answer that? So, do you want to have a go, Nigel, or shall I have a...
I would say that all of those stakeholders in the chain have their part to play in telling the story, and that we shouldn't concentrate on one end or the other end. It's an integrated chain, and all of those have their importance. for how to disseminate that information and interest and knowledge. Again, I wouldn't go just for the internet, but I wouldn't ignore the internet. I wouldn't go just for printed journals, Dan. Not solely, but they must have a role to play. And I greatly regret that in Europe, we don't have a magazine which is devoted to the tea scene in Europe. In the USA, there are several which are devoted to tea and coffee, and they're beverage magazines, big beverage journals, but they really concentrate on stories about those beverages, and they are of intense interest. And I've been collecting the American ones for the past 30, 40 years. I've got a huge collection, which I go back to because they're still of interest. But yeah, I think we shouldn't concentrate on any one provider and shouldn't concentrate on any one link in the chain. It should be done from end to end and using every resource that we can.
I would agree with you.
I think, sorry.
I would just say I would agree with you, Nigel, but I would just add that for me, going to meet the producer, going to the origin country of tea producing and meet the producers, you know, is another thing that can send a shiver down your spine to actually experience and learn so much about what they're doing. And if you need any reason to increase your level of passion and interest in specialty tea, then go to meet the producer and it'll do that for you. But other than that, I agree with you, Nigel.
Certainly, anyone who is interested in tea should have done that right from the beginning. This is one of the reasons I run an educational tea tour to India every year. Not this year, unfortunately, but to take people, even people from the industry, to a real tea garden and sit down with them and explain to them the things which they've read in books or seen and read about, but haven't really understood it. To get them put in their hands on, truly the hands on, picking it, smelling it, tasting it, going around a factory and seeing how the smell changes from the aroma changes from the beginning to the end of the process. That really opens the eyes, and producer visits are essential. But they're not the whole story by any means. I mean, I would happily take people on a trip on a container ship, because there's a lot to be learned about tea on a container ship. How the tea is packed in order that it doesn't pick up contamination and aroma, lose aroma. It's the whole chain is fascinating, and the whole chain is an education. And the more we can interest people in tea, and the more we can explain what happens, why it happens, and to generate that interest and satisfy that interest.
I think if I may just add to this, I totally agree with you, Nigel. I mean, there's really nothing like visiting, the tea garden itself. But I think, storytelling is so important. But the problem with it is you get storytellers who muddy the waters by telling stories that aren't true just to sell the tea. So authenticity, accuracy is really, really important, which is why, as passionate as we are about specialty tea, we're also advocating education, which is going to be the backbone of how we're going to move things forward, isn't it? And, I have to say there have been some comments in the chat about people loving to understand how to grow tea. So maybe it's a category, Nigel, that we have to add to our education. Literally how to grow tea, teach the industry to do.
Certainly in the past 15 years or so, tea growing in Europe is really starting to take off. And we have something like 70 different tea growers in Europe now. That's when I started in tea 40 years ago, there was not a single one. So interest in growing tea, both for as a hobby and for commercial purposes in Europe, are taking off. And it's far easier to go to a tea producer in France or Holland or Wales or Scotland than it is to go to Africa or Sri Lanka or India or China.
It's worth saying also that we have a working group at the moment which is working towards putting together a new category for members, which is for producers. That's both producers in traditional countries, but also producers in Europe, because we really feel that we need to engage with them. And part of putting that together will be looking at how we can organise trips, maybe, and certainly within Europe so that people can quite easily go and see a tea garden and help, both those producers both in Europe and elsewhere, maybe find routes into the European market that they don't have.
Indeed. Karine just said, also the Netherlands, there is a plantation which is getting better all the time. Totally agree, which is one of the key things that we are doing, is to engage with all our producers in Europe, to see what they're up to help them also with any support we can give them. But it's also supporting people in other countries to navigate the market in Europe, because, behaviors, market loves will be slightly different over here. So that's what we really, really would hope to do. Now, I have a question. This is also from Petra. I'm a certified tea sommelier via International Tea Masters Association, and she asks, will you be providing via your partner trainers a similar kind of training in Europe? David or Alexis, do you want to answer that?
Well, we weren't really planning on doing a tea sommelier qualification, but we were planning on doing a tea barista. And I think I'm going to leave that to David to tell a little bit more about.
Yes.
Okay. Well, to answer your question directly, Petra, we're just a little bit nervous at the moment of the term sommelier, because it means so many different things to different people, and comes with it often different levels of quality of training. So whilst it's a relevant word and we may well use it at some point, just at the moment we're not so sure. But what you're actually getting at is, will we be aiming some of our training at people, say, in the hospitality industry who may either think of themselves as sommeliers or may have been entering at sommelier level? And the answer to that is yes, either in specific modules such as brewing or sensory skills, or in the wider modules such as hospitality that Alexis mentioned earlier on. And we're also, I'll sort of follow on what you're saying, Alexis, and just mention the tea barista, which is a concept which we have we've just launched really last week with a category for the tea barista member, and we've had a little bit of criticism, or there's been some debate about how relevant that the word barista is for tea. And I know that Diana, who is on the webinar, sent in a question saying, why have we used the word tea barista? Surely this is, people think of coffee immediately, although Diana also did mention the fact that the word barista is a corruption, because in Italian it means bartender, of course, and a bartender serves all sorts of beverages, hot and cold, but the coffee industry has sort of commandeered that word. And it's a very relevant point to make, I think. We don't, as I said earlier on, we don't want to copy everything that the coffee industry has done. And we don't want to use the word barista just because the coffee industry uses the word barista. We absolutely don't want to do that. But I'm sort of thinking about it from a different angle, if you like, because a good barista, a good coffee barista is passionate, is knowledgeable, or she's knowledgeable, and is also innovative. And baristas are always looking for that next innovation to fire them up. and I believe that tea is that next innovation for baristas. So why should it be that a barista is a person who can make great coffee, but rubbish tea? Because that's what happens, not always, but in many cases. Bernadine's already mentioned it, that, you know, she'll have a coffee rather than a tea because she feels that the tea, you know, is not going to be very good. So let's turn it around and let's give baristas a reason and a platform and the enthusiasm and the encouragement to learn about specialty tea and what it is, and start buying it and brewing it and serving it in their cafe, and thereby improve the profits of the cafe. And let's make it a goal for baristas to be able to say, I'm not only am I a barista, but I'm a tea barista. That's something really special. So
I
that's,
agree. And I think,
yeah, go on.
sorry.
No, you go.
No, I agree, David. And I think, we have spoken to so many baristas who are very excited to build on their knowledge in tea, because very often, these baristas who are contracted by the companies and given training by large chains are given a lot of training on coffee, but tea is just like a sideline. They just get a brief understanding of which tea is what, and there's never really any effort been put into the training of tea in this barista. So we've spoken to a lot of them. They love to acquire new skills. They understand quality, and David is absolutely right. They're young, they're passionate, they're innovative. So these are the type of people we need in our industry to really jazz things up, because the trend is here. Health and well-being is huge. Our target customers who are open to an exploration of sensory, of colors, of taste, and different methods of brewing, and also using tea as an ingredient. These are the type of people we would like to give them the skill, give them the knowledge, and then let them run with it. And this is the way we can see the industry start to flourish, and the ideas start to come out, and people get really, really interested in our industry. So this is the way we think we can introduce the skill to masses.
Yeah. Paula has asked a question. Doesn't the word barista isn't it heavily associated with coffee? And then she says, one who knows how to make it, but learned ? Educated ? I think you may be saying, are baristas really educated and have knowledge about coffee? Well, it's probably fair to say that in a high street branded coffee shop, perhaps not the same, but those baristas who are into specialty coffee, certainly, and partly through the fantastic education program that SCA have, which we will be emulating, many specialty coffee baristas are educated and passionate and knowledgeable, and they're the people that we want to introduce specialty tea to, because they will embrace it and they'll get it in their heart and their mind immediately.
So Marjolaine seems to agree with us. She says that I like the term tea barista. It seems more approachable with flowing energy, where tea sommelier feels a little bit more distant and elitist. I think you're right, Marjolaine, and both has its place. I wouldn't automatically say we don't like the term tea sommelier. Of course not, because a sommelier is one that has skill. They're able to take you on an imaginary voyage right there from your seats. And that's important as well. But it's important to understand that within the tea experience arena, there are many different avenues, many different target customers. Using the right terminology in the right setting will help us achieve our goal. So Dimitri from Russia says, I teach to work with tea a lot of baristas in St. Petersburg in Russia, and they show a lot of interest in tea. Oh, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Yeah, that's really great. Okay, AJ has a question, and maybe this is one for Nigel, but maybe Alexis can answer as well. But he says, how can the MRL of pesticides can be made uniform across the world? Do you have an answer?
The answer is with great difficulty.
Yes.
People are trying to do it. They've been trying to do it for the last 10 years. Every country wants to impose its own levels rather than work internationally. So as with many international ventures, individual countries are against working together. And until they do, then we'll have this problem that you can make a tea which is perfectly acceptable in one country and is not acceptable in another, whereas both of them are quite safe. So the answer is we can't actually foresee, well, I can't actually foresee in the near future any progress on that.
Mm. Another question actually, which kind of relates to this as well. Marianne says, how important is water quality to producing the best cup? Or can the specialty tea blend mask this and with its individual potency? I have to say it is the key. Water, isn't it, is tea's best friend. And with the best tea, you know, and bad water, you're never going to be able to achieve that. Would you say, Alexis?
Absolutely. I mean, water is your main ingredient. So you can ruin a perfectly excellent cup of tea by using bad water, but you can actually improve a pretty bad quality by using the good quality water. So water is key. It has to be with very little, pH has to be around about 7.5, and it has to be without any, what's called calc, it's in Danish, what's it called in Danish? I can't remember the word in English. Lime scale, without any lime in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're really working with a great experts in water. One of our main sponsors are Brita, isn't it, David, who is supporting us on the education of water and tea.
Yeah, we're working with Brita on education and research as well. And so just going back to education on the sensory modules that we put together, there'll be a big section on water, going into it much wider and deeper than any other education you're likely to get anywhere at all, because, you know, as Alexis says, it's just so important, and Bernadette as well, it's what, you know, 99% of your tea is water.
This is a question, a producer question. Lorella says, do you think that in the future, the organic certification will be more affordable for smaller producers? Maybe this is for Nigel.
Would you like a cynical answer or an optimistic answer? Really, the certification and the cost of certification is for a developing country, small grower, is just not affordable. And the Rainforest Alliance is the one now that's really taking over on certification, and they, I don't know whether they are going to see the light, but the more you try to promote sustainability and organic growing, the more important it is that people can afford to get into it. Unilever has done remarkable work on the sustainability side of tea growing, and they, not totally altruistic, I might say. As an ex-Unilever employee, I shouldn't be saying this, of course, but I don't have a pension from them, so I can say what I want. They did a lot of groundwork on sustainable growing of tea, some very good work in Kenya, and then they had the bright idea that to sell more tea, they needed a little green frog on their box, and went into close alliance with the Rainforest Alliance. And they were buying from producers who were Rainforest Alliance certified. And then they decided that by 2015, I think it was, that every single leaf of tea that Unilever sold would have to be Rainforest Alliance certified. But they were buying a lot of tea from producers who weren't certified, and increasingly from ones that were certified. And when they decided that all their tea would be certified, they said to the producers, okay, we will discontinue buying tea from you unless you get certified. And the cost of that certification was put squarely on the shoulders of the producers. And small producers had to pull out of selling to Unilever because they couldn't afford certification. Typical cost is about a couple of $1,000 to get your farm into it. And that's the entrance fee. That's the initial inspection. And then an annual fee of a couple of thousand, depending on the size of your farm. And so if you're small, that's a huge amount off your bottom line. So certification is good when it's done well. A lot of it, and fair trade, for instance, also has these bright ideas. Fair trade, I gave a presentation last year on fair trade, and I think I called it, How Fair is Fair Trade? And the answer is, not very fair at all. And you find at the moment that some of the supermarkets are coming out of the fair trade. They are going with schemes of their own, because very, very little of the money that you buy when you buy a fair trade certified product, very little of that money comes down to the person at the bottom of the chain, the one that it's supposed to be helping. And when I say very little, on average, and this is not my figures, these are figures which have been produced from various experts looking at it, from Bill Gates right the way through to people who do nothing else in their life but look at fair trade and how it's working. The average sort of amount that comes down from, if you pay $1, the dollar of the price that you're paying for your fair trade product, if it's an extra dollar, 1 cent of that dollar comes down to the person who's actually in the field. So certification, organic certification, sustainable certification, fair trade, all of that is very much a can of worms.
Can I just come in? I agree with everything that you've said there, Nigel, but from a different angle, maybe this is idealistic and rubbish that I'm about to say now, but I'd like to see a situation where organic certification in speciality, in terms of speciality tea, is totally irrelevant, because the transparency and the proof of the provenance and the direct link and communication between professionals in the consuming countries and the producers is so strong that an organic certificate is redundant. And that $2,000 that Nigel's just mentioned, rather than going to certification, goes to helping the farmer buy more equipment, or getting education or other areas to help him improve the quality of his tea, which will in the end give him a better price for his tea.
Yeah, certainly that is what organizations who are getting out of it are actually trying to put into effect. So fair trade was a wonderful aspiration, but the mechanics of it, the logistics of it, just aren't working.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just have to interject here, because AJ says that affordability of certification to the already leading producer is a problem. Certified tea should get a premium for sustainability of the producers. I think we totally agree with that, isn't it? And that's
Absolutely.
why education is everything, because education then raises standards of the tea that is served. You get better buying of tea from the operators, and also effort from the tea baristas or the sommelier is put into delivering that beverage and explaining it as well. So from all that point, it just filters down, isn't it, with education into every part of the chain. And this is when we can command a better price for specialty tea. Would you agree, guys?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
I think it would be fair to say that specialty tea has a shorter, typically has a shorter supply chain, a shorter value chain than commodity tea. And that the amount that comes down to the producer proportionally is higher than with commodity tea.
Yeah.
So promoting specialty tea is good for not only the consumer but also for the producer.
Absolutely. Well, if there's any more questions, please feel free to type it in. We're 5 minutes to 8 o'clock here in the UK. There's something from Andrew. Just 1 second. So Andrew says this question speaks to the difficulty specialty frequently runs into, the problem of small scale existing systems such as organic fair trade certification, import regulations are oriented towards the scale and homogeneity of commodity tea. Specialty has to advocate for its place outside of this.
Agreed.
And yeah, we totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And Dan Bolton says, perhaps the most important aspect of assuring consumers beyond certification is unfeathered transparency. This does not preclude third-party seals and application of sustainable practices. Transparency addresses the essential.
Yeah.
Yes, we absolutely would totally agree with this. So, you know, it's been, we love this sort of debates, and thank you so much, everybody, you know, for being so open and forthcoming with your questions. This is what we love. We are passionate individuals. Our society, you know, spans across the globe with many people based in Europe. And we're looking to support everyone within the tea value chain. We're a volunteer-based society and we run on membership. So we would love any of you who wants to join us in this movement to join our membership and our mission to raise standards everywhere. Because we're a volunteer association, you know, it's sometimes quite tough. We're running our own businesses and as well as running the organization as well. We need help from talented, passionate people. So if you are interested in being part of the movement, even if a little bit or a lot of your time you can give, we'd really love to hear from you. And we're also putting together a really interesting bank of people running different departments within our society. So if you're interested and have a particular skill, whether it's in research, marketing, buying, operations, producing, anything, we would love to hear from you. The other thing is also we are going to be running these webinars every month with interesting topics, and we're looking for new things to feature, you know, unusual things as well that anybody within the tea industry could benefit from. So if you do have ideas, please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. But please do look out and maybe join our LinkedIn page, because we'll be launching some roles, if you like, job roles. Volunteer job roles, I have to make that clear. And we'd love to hear from you if you can, you know, help contribute to our mission and movement. But if you have any questions, and I'm so sorry if I didn't get to your questions because my internet was a little bit iffy at the start, and then we received quite a lot. If I didn't get to your questions, please would you send us an email? We'd be very, very happy to reply to you and help you on your journey. But for now, I have to say, sorry, next month, we're going to have also continue the talk on specialty tea. And we have an expert. She runs a tea school. Her name is Lucy Chappell. And she will be running a webinar on specialty tea. So please do look out for more information. And if you're interested, sign up to our newsletter. We'll send it to you with a lot more information. I know it's late for some of you guys, especially joining us from Asia. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it. Please do follow us and keep in touch with us as well. So I would love to say to you, good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much. And we'll see you bright and early next month. But have a good day. Take care. Sorry, is there anybody who'd like to say anything? Alexis, Nigel, and David, are you guys wanting to say any last words?
Only for me, to all of our members who are with us tonight, thank you for being with us and thank you for being members. To anybody who's not a member, just to reiterate what Bernadine has said, if you've been inspired by anything that you've heard tonight, please consider joining us, because we need as many people as possible, as Bernadine said, to get on this exciting journey with us to help to promote speciality tea in the future.
Great.
Thank you very much. All right, from all of us, a warm evening, and we hope to see you very soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.